So what I would say is you need to be able to communicate really the value, the benefits of your project in 1 or 2 lines, in 30 seconds and in 2 minutes. And if you get that opportunity, you need to be able to communicate it. Because as an investor, you're hearing so many things so many pitches. When you get in front of the investor, you need to be able to clearly communicate it. They need to be able to understand it, be interested in it very quickly.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Crowdcreate podcast, where we bring thought leaders in the world of Web3, crypto, and blockchain to share valuable insights on how to grow your business, attract more users, and even raise capital. We have on Murray. Murray I've known for quite some time. I actually was following him on Forbes, and now he's an investor, and actually ran across him at a conference just recently and had a lot of good insights on what it's like to be a VC investor and whatnot. And so Murray, would love for you to introduce yourself.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me on the show. And thank you for listening and watching. So I'm Murray Newlands. I'm from England originally. I moved to the Bay Area about 15 years ago. At the time, I was applying for my visa as an alien of extraordinary ability, and I really built up a following writing for different publications, including Forbes, Inc. magazine, Entrepreneur magazine, Mashable, The Guardian, even Time picked up some of my publications. I also hosted a television show, which was on the Irish TV back in Europe, and have done a number of media appearances here. I also have built and sold a couple of SaaS businesses. I helped touring.com. I was head of strategy when they were younger. They are now a multi-billion-dollar company. And more recently, I joined OnePiece, which is a Web3 fund. And we also have an incubator. I work on the investment team for the fund, and I also run the incubator program.
Nice. So Murray, as a VC investor, I'm sure you get pitched hundreds of projects. And with a new revolutionary technology like blockchain, crypto, Web3, most of these companies like to get into the really kind of technical, geeky details and aren't able to properly communicate the value proposition or features or benefits even of their platform. Maybe can you break down just any high-level insights and tips for these projects on how they can better do so?
So what I would say is you need to think about the process which you're going to go through with the investors. Usually you're going to pitch multiple times, and even you're going to pitch to 1 or 2 partners, and then often that goes to an investment committee, which is a group of people who you might not even meet. And so what you have to think is, at the minimum, they have to be able to communicate your project very simply to that group. And so if you think backwards from there, in order for them to be able to do that, they need to understand it, and they need to be able to communicate it in 1 or 2 lines. So therefore, you need to communicate it to them in 1 or 2 lines, and they need to be able to re-communicate that very easily. And that is also when you're meeting them, if you're meeting an investor, you need to be able to communicate your project to them very clearly, very easily. And the fact that you can do that shows that you're confident with it, shows that you understand how to communicate it. And one thing that you're looking for as an investor is, do these people really understand how to communicate this to others? And obviously, if it's easy for you to communicate to the investor, then it's much easier for them to understand. How you do that depends on every project. But if you think about the reverse of that, I see far too many pitch decks and hear far too many pitches where the builder, and it's very easy to get into this trap, spends a lot of time creating their project. They get into all of the detail. They know the nuances. They want to communicate all of that. But it can take 10 minutes for them to go through a story to get to what the actual product is. And then by then, do you have time for that? Are you still listening? And if it takes that long and you go so much into the detail and the features, do you really know how to understand it? Can you really communicate it? And how are they possibly, even if they want to take this further, how are they possibly going to communicate that to an investment committee? So what I would say is you need to be able to communicate really the value, the benefits of your project in 1 or 2 lines, in 30 seconds and in 2 minutes. And if you get that opportunity, you need to be able to communicate it. Because as an investor, you're hearing so many things so many pitches. When you get in front of the investor, you need to be able to clearly communicate it. They need to be able to understand it, be interested in it very quickly. And someone who's good at that is also probably then going to be good at understanding how to communicate this to consumers and whoever their consumers are, whether they're business customers, whether it's other enterprises. You also want to invest in investable companies. So you want to invest in founders who are good at communicating and basically selling their startup to you, so that they're going to be good at selling it to other investors. Because they're bad at selling it to you, they're going to be bad at selling it to other investors too. So for all those reasons, it's very important to be very good at getting clarity as to exactly what your project is. And look, obviously, we want the project to have a lot of detail, a lot of depth. But if you think about, for example, using your phone or doing Zoom, when you're doing Zoom, like if you were to do a pitch deck for Zoom, you would make it very easy. Hey, you boot up your laptop, you can do instant video communication with 1 click. You wouldn't talk about you wouldn't start to communicate that, hey, it uses this protocol, this is the speed of the video service, here's how you need to press these 5 buttons, you've got this record button, there's these extra features. You would make it, if you want to convince your friend to use Zoom, you would make it very simple. And you need to try and communicate your startup in the same way, whether it's a Web 2 startup or whether it's a Web 3 startup. You need to be able to get to the clarity that you can communicate it very simply.
Do you have a framework for that? Because I know Founders Institute, they had these worksheets that literally would say, my company X is developing this to help this with this problem with using this magic secret technology. Like, how do you like to see even just your decks and that communicated vision?
So I would say I've seen multiple frameworks. And the thing is, the challenge is that different frameworks tend to work for different types of solution. The question is, what story are you telling and how are you telling that story? There is another framework which works that the sort of Star Wars framework, where you were doing this and you were going to be going here, but then this happened, which is and it inevitably changes the story. Therefore the outlook is going to be changed, such as, you were sending DVDs in the mail and then suddenly came along streaming, and therefore it was inevitable that Netflix was going to take off. So there are different frameworks, and those different frameworks work for different types of use case. So I wouldn't necessarily get hung up on one framework, but what I would say is think about how you could communicate your startup to a 5-year-old and explain it to them in like 1 minute and keep their attention span for 1 minute. And if you can't do that, then it's going to be hard to communicate to investors. Wow. So think about a very simple story. Think about the easiest way to communicate it. And even in the rest of the pitch deck, keep it relatively simple, unless there's if there's going to be some technical stuff, there need to be 1 or 2 technical points where you dive really deep in, and it needs to be really important why those technical elements are. The last thing you want to do is have a feature list of 50 features in a very early stage pitch deck, because it also seems like you're just throwing the kitchen sink at things, and you don't clearly understand what problem you solve. One of the things that people say about Google, for example, is when you think about if you go back in time, Google competed because it had a website. There was one space to add to create to put your search in, and there was a search on Google and Get Lucky, and that was it. And their competitor was probably Yahoo, which was a directory, and you came there and there were like 1,000, literally 500 different links that you could click on to go to different places. And what Google has been amazing at, and what Apple has been amazing at, is, you go to your phone, the main things that you want to do are just one press of one button. You click on, if you want to do a video call on Apple to Apple, you click on the phone, on the person's name, you click on the phone, you click on the person's name, you click on the video, bang, it happens. It's very simple. And you need to be able to think about how you're going to communicate with that people in a very simple way, not here's 500 options, here's the 15 things that we might do, and the 25 different markets. Hey, if you get that far, you're a multi-billion-dollar company, great. But usually it's like, okay, we're going to solve this problem for this small group of customers, and we're going to nail that before we go further. Whereas if you say, hey, we have no competitors and everyone is our customer, that just doesn't sound believable. Because, for example, I had an online invoicing startup, and our number one competitor was actually probably people creating Word docs and sending the Word docs. Like that was the number one competitor. So there's always, the very simple, like the Netflix say that their number one competitor to Netflix at the time was sleep. So there's always a competitor, like human behavior, and there's always always want to try and really simplify it, unless it truly is a rocket science thing you're trying to do, and that's just not the case in most scenarios.
Wow. So is that something you'd like to see in the pitch deck as well, as basically who is your competitor, or what is that second alternative that they would do if they didn't have your product?
And also think about, if you're going to pitch this internally to other investors, to investor committee, one of the questions they're bound to ask is, who are the competitors? And if you say there are no competitors, well, if you say there are no competitors, there's a couple of things. One is, are you just lying?
Right.
Another thing is, do you really understand who the customer is and what the customer is trying to do? Because there usually is a competitor to it. And then if there's no competitor, why is there no competitor? Because if there truly is no competitor, then is there any demand for it? Whereas actually having some competitor shows that there is demand for it, shows the value. You can show the market size, you can show the value of it, and therefore you can sort of prove your business model, which is also very important. And you can say, look, there is this competitor, but we know we can kill them because X, Y, Z. Great. But if you just say there's no competitor, it potentially shows you really don't know what the market is.
Yeah, that's interesting. So hypothetically speaking, the Bored Ape Yacht Club, what if you were pitching the idea for a profile picture and it was just a fun membership community? How would you pitch that? Where it's, is a competitor them not having a group, or how do you see that if somebody brought you the Bored Ape Yacht Club pitch deck 2 years ago when it was just an idea?
I mean, there was obviously the first person to bring out an NFT collection.
Right.
I think bringing out the first NFT collection would be very difficult. But even then, people had collectibles that they cared about. If I think about other types of collectible that people care about, it's they definitely care about art. They care about high fashion. Topps trading cards, for example, are physical sports cards that now have super high value. That's a very collectible thing. And you might say, well, it's a different audience, but you can show that people will collect limited edition valuable items. And like some of the Topps trading cards sell for massive sums of money, and it's just a piece of card with some squiggle on it. So you can prove you can certainly prove the model by demonstrating other types of collectible, and even digital photography has been selling, and photography has been selling, art has been selling for high value for a long time.
Yeah. Wow. That's good, Murray. Really good insights. So yeah, how should projects, what's the best way to approach and pitch a VC? All right. I'm guessing obviously it's referrals and through introductions, but what happens if people do not have those relationships? Can you walk us through, is it like applying for an accelerator, or like what is just the framework?
So what I would say is think about, firstly, think about investors before you need investors, right?
Okay.
If you can, ideally, you're not just saying, hey, I'm just going to launch this project out of the blue. Ideally, you're thinking about, hey, I might launch this project in 6 months' time. Try and speak to investors, like find, for example, local business networking meetup or some other local events, because in person is much easier, particularly for early startups than later. Also, do you know other business people who have raised money and can make those introductions? And where would you find those people? And get to know them long before you want to build a product. And a lot of people say, well, I don't want to share it with them because it's not ready. Actually, the experienced founders that I know will take the idea, they'll speak to some investors before they even try and think about taking, they'll maybe pitch 2 or 3 ideas to investors that they know before they think about writing any code or even doing any research. Say, is this idea investable? And if they're able to say yes, it's investable, and you just come back later and say, hey, I built it, I spoke to customers, I got some customers, I built it because the customers want it, then you've already started to build the relationship with the investor before you get any further. Now, it's not the investor's job to bounce ideas off, so you need to build that relationship. But I personally, I would say, how do you connect with them at an event or in person? Ideally, you do get introduced to them through a founder that they've already invested in, because that's a great sign, or some other investor. So obviously, if I meet someone and I'm introduced by a friend, I'm more likely to trust that person. So there's definitely that. And also, am I going to write a check to someone who just walks up to me randomly in an event? Probably not. If I've got to know them over 6 months, much more likely to make that happen. And also, we invest in specific types of startup at specific stages. I also know lots of other investors, so I might say, hey, this is not for me, but have you tried this other fund, or have you tried these other people? So also think about asking them who else they can recommend that might be a better fit for your type of project. So one thing I would say is, look, find out if there are local events, meetups, which investors go to them, speak to other founders. They will know who you should speak to. And then when you speak to them, be ready with a great pitch for your startup, and do it early, even at idea stage. And then see if you can build that relationship. Or, hey, look, equally, if it's not a fit for them, do they know anyone else? They may well know someone who's a better fit. Also, going to those startup events, and other startup founders will say, tell me about your project. And in some ways, that's just having to tell people is pitching your project. So practice pitching your project with as many other startup founders, and even ask them, hey, do you understand? Is this a good pitch? Once you've explained the project, is this a good way to describe it, or would you describe it in a different way? So all of those things are great for finding investors and learning to pitch.
Nice. And so maybe share, so one of your latest investments, what about it that really got you excited to deploy capital into it? Like maybe just at a high level, like what boxes did they check, or what was it, or how did it happen?
So yeah, Libation Labs is a project working in the wine space. The founders were early team members of a super successful exit in the past, so that's good. They have a great network in the investor community. They know how to build projects. They also come from Napa, the wine region, so they've got amazing wine contacts. They built a a relatively simple niche project and got some great revenue and great traction with that. And now they're building out well beyond that initial vision. And we expect the vision to change over time. We expect the development. Hopefully you are going to learn along the journey. And so we expect the vision to grow, and they've been able to grow the vision. And they have also managed to get some great advisors and other great investors on board, and really shown great abilities of founding team. And really because we know that things are going to change over time, and everyday project problems are going to come up. So is this founding team likely to succeed despite all of the changes that are going to happen in the project? And they've got that sort of proven track record. And so really excited to be backing them.
That's great. Very phenomenal. Great insights. Is there anything that we're missing that you'd like to share?
Yeah. If you'd like to reach out to me, find me on LinkedIn. There's only one Murray Newlands that I know on LinkedIn, OnePiece Labs. If I can help you, please reach out. And thank you so much for having me on the show. I really appreciate it.
Awesome. Well, yep. I'll drop the links to Murray's LinkedIn and just websites, and overall, hopefully see you again on another one of these. And thanks.
Thank you.
If you like this video, the best thing you can do is subscribe to our channel. It helps support us so that we can continue bringing you valuable insights and thought leaders just like this. If you'd like to contact Crowdcreate, visit our website, where we share even more resources like blog posts, tips, strategies, and you can also contact us where we can answer any of your questions. Thanks.